I'm Amber, 28, and last Christmas changed everything. For years, I watched my younger sister Heather get the lion's share of our parents' attention and generosity. While I busted my ass paying my own bills as a graphic designer, she lived at home rent-free, taking 6 years to finish a 2-year degree. That December, I drove my dying Honda to my parents' house with a special lottery ticket tucked in my purse, their Christmas gift. I never imagined how that ticket would flip my world upside down when Heather got a brand new Lexus and I got socks. Growing up in suburban Boston, the favoritism was subtle at first. When I earned straight A's, they nodded. When Heather brought home C's, they celebrated with ice cream. When I got into college with a partial scholarship, they seemed pleased. When Heather got accepted to community college, they threw a party. "We're just so proud of both our girls," Mom would say when anyone noticed the difference. "Amber's always been so independent," Dad would add. "She doesn't need the extra encouragement like Heather does." Translation: I was the responsible one, so I got less, always less. After college, I landed a decent job and rented my own apartment. Meanwhile, at 25, Heather still lived at home. Parents paid her tuition, gave her spending money, never asked for rent. "Your sister is still finding herself," Mom explained when I hinted at the unfairness. "College is harder for her." My Honda had been dying for months. Transmission slipping, AC dead, check engine light permanently on. I'd blown $2,000 on repairs, money I'd saved for vacation. "Maybe it's time for a new car," Dad suggested over dinner. I explained I couldn't afford payments while paying student loans. "You'll figure it out," he said with a pat on my shoulder. "You always do." Last Christmas was typical. I got a sweater and gift card. Heather got a MacBook Pro, designer boots, and a trip to New York. Heather needed a computer for school, Mom explained. "You already have that nice laptop from work." The disparity stung, but I said nothing again. This year, I'd spent weeks finding perfect gifts on my tight budget. For my parents, I'd created a personalized photo album and included our family tradition, a lottery ticket, but I'd splurged on a $20 holiday scratcher instead of my usual $51. The drive to their house took forever. My Honda protested every mile, making ominous sounds whenever I hit the gas. Snow was falling, traffic crawled. "Amber's here." Mom called as I pulled in, flour on her apron, cookie dough in her hair. Inside, the house smelled like cinnamon and childhood memories. Extended family filled every room, cousin this, uncle that, all wanting updates on my little business. Then Heather burst through the door like she was making a grand entrance. "I'm here," she announced, shopping bags in hand. "And I brought dessert from Magnolia Bakery." Mom rushed to help. Dad emerged with the enthusiasm he'd never shown for my arrival. "There's my Christmas angel." Heather looked perfect. Designer jeans, expensive coat, hair like she'd stepped out of a salon. At 25, she still played Daddy's little girl like a violin. Dinner was torture. When relatives asked about my work, I'd start explaining an exciting campaign only to get interrupted. "Speaking of design, Heather's thinking of taking art classes," Uncle Greg would say, steering conversation back to the golden child. "I might minor in graphic design," Heather chimed in. "Amber makes it look so fun," Mom beamed. "Her professor says she has a natural eye for aesthetics." I remembered my straight A's in design school, the internships I'd worked while earning my degree, the decade of building my career while she floundered. But I smiled and sipped my wine. After dinner, Heather casually mentioned struggling with business courses. "I just don't understand economics," she sighed. "It's so boring." "College isn't all fun and games," Dad said gently. "But don't worry, your mom and I think you should reduce your course load next semester. No need to burn yourself out." I nearly choked on my pie. When I'd struggled with a challenging course, Dad had simply said, "Buck up, that's what college is about." The gift exchange was set for after dinner. Living room transformed into holiday paradise, tree twinkling, fire crackling. I sat on the window seat, slightly removed from the family circle, wine providing liquid courage. Dad played Santa, distributing gifts one by one. "Youngest to oldest," he announced, meaning Heather always went first. My handcrafted jewelry for Heather earned a quick "thanks sis, it's cute" before she moved to bigger packages from our parents. The photo album I'd spent weeks creating got appreciative nods but was quickly set aside. "We'll look through it later, honey," Mom promised, already reaching for the next gift. Meanwhile, Heather's expensive gifts, funded by our parents but given as from Heather, earned exclamations of delight. Then came my turn. From Heather, a generic bath set with clearance stickers still visible. From my parents, fuzzy socks, $25 coffee gift card, knit hat. "Thanks," I said, trying to sound grateful. "The hat will be handy." "It's wool," Mom pointed out. "I know how cold your apartment gets." She knew because I kept my thermostat low to save on heating bills. Never once had they offered to help with utilities, though they covered all of Heather's. "Now," Dad said dramatically, "I think there's one more special gift here somewhere." He produced a small silver box with blue bow, for Heather from Mom and Dad. The room went silent. Heather opened the velvet jewelry box to find not jewelry but a single car key. "No way," she whispered, looking up. "No way." Mom was already crying, Dad beaming with pride. "It's out front," he said. "Merry Christmas, princess." The entire family rushed outside. There it sat, a brand new white Lexus SUV with enormous red bow. "It's a Lexus NX," Dad announced proudly. "All-wheel drive, latest safety features, excellent fuel economy." Heather screamed and ran into the snow without a coat. Everyone gathered around her new toy, testing the sound system, admiring the leather seats. I stood frozen in the doorway. The contrast was so stark it was almost comical. Fuzzy socks for me, luxury SUV for her. My dying Honda sat just feet away, looking even more pathetic by comparison. Nobody noticed I wasn't celebrating. They were too busy watching Heather play with her new toy. I quietly went back inside, picked up my modest gifts, and headed to the bathroom, locked the door, looked at myself in the mirror. Don't cry, I whispered. Don't give them the satisfaction, but the tears came anyway. Hot, angry tears streaming down my face as I sat on the bathtub edge. Outside, car horn honked as Heather tested her new toy. I stayed hidden until everyone came back in, laughter and excitement filling the house. After fixing my makeup, I rejoined with a practiced smile. Nobody asked where I'd been, I barely slept. The lottery ticket sat in my purse, still in its red envelope unfulfilled. I'd been too devastated to give it to them after the car reveal. Downstairs, Heather was already regaling everyone with road trip plans. I'm driving to New York with the girls, she gushed. The sound system is amazing. Safety first, Dad said approvingly. That's why we chose that model. Good morning, I said, forcing brightness. Sleep well, Mom asked, sliding a plate toward me. Before I could answer, Heather jumped in. I barely slept. I kept checking the window to make sure it was real. Better get used to it, Dad chuckled. It's all yours, payments and all. Well, we're covering insurance, of course. I nearly choked on my coffee. You're covering her insurance too? Awkward silence. Mom and Dad exchanged glances. Insurance for new cars can be expensive, Mom finally said. She's 25, I pointed out, hardly a new driver. Amber, it's Christmas, Dad said firmly. Let's not get into all that. Something inside me snapped. I'm just trying to understand. You buy Heather a brand new Lexus and cover insurance while I'm driving a car that's falling apart and got socks for Christmas. That's not fair, Mom protested. We got you the gift card too and that nice hat. It's not about the hat, I said quietly but with steel in my voice. It's about the disparity. You've always given Heather more support, more gifts, more everything. Heather needs reliable transportation for school, Dad said defensively. You're doing well on your own, so I'm being punished for being responsible while Heather gets rewarded for what exactly? Living at home at 25, taking 6 years to finish a 2-year degree? That's not fair, Heather protested, lower lip jutting out. Life is hard for everyone, Heather. The difference is I've had to face that reality while you've been sheltered from it. The tension was suffocating. Extended family suddenly found their breakfast fascinating. I think I'm heading home early, I announced, standing. I have work to catch up on. On Christmas, Mom looked shocked. Can it wait? Not really, I lied, already heading upstairs to pack. 20 minutes later, I was saying stiff goodbyes in the foyer. Dad looked stern, Mom teary-eyed, Heather sulking. I walked to my car, threw my bag in back, turned the key. Nothing, tried again, clicking sound, but engine wouldn't turn over. Perfect, just fucking perfect. A knock on my window. Dad stood there, bundled in his coat. I rolled down the manual window. Electric controls died months ago. Car trouble, he asked. Looks like it. He examined the engine, then closed the hood with a decisive thunk. Battery's dead, and from the sound, your starter might be going too. You really need to take better care of this car, Amber. Something inside me detonated. Take better care, Dad. I've put every spare penny into maintaining this car. I work full-time, pay my own rent, student loans, everything. Meanwhile, Heather lives here rent-free and you just bought her a Lexus. His face hardened. That's different. Your sister needs help more than I do, I finished. Why? Because she's never been encouraged to stand on her own feet? Because you've always swooped in to solve her problems? The front door opened. Mom and Heather appeared, drawn by raised voices. What's going on? Mom called. Amber's car won't start, Dad replied. And she's upset about Heather's gift. I can drive you home in my new car, Heather offered, sounding helpful but coming across as smug. I laughed, sharp, humorless sound. Perfect, the successful daughter driven home by the favored one in her brand new Lexus. Amber, Mom gasped. That's terrible. Is it, or is it just the truth nobody wants to acknowledge? I was shouting now, years of pent-up frustration pouring out. For as long as I can remember, Heather has gotten everything handed to her while I've worked twice as hard for half the recognition. That's absolutely not true, Dad argued, face reddening. We've always treated you girls equally. Equally, I pulled out my phone, opened calculator. Let's do math, Dad. Last year, Heather got a MacBook, designer boots, New York trip, value $3,500. I got a sweater, scarf, gift card, value $150. Sound equal? Mom started crying. We don't love you any less, Amber. We just thought that I didn't need as much because I was doing well on my own, I finished. But did you ever consider maybe I was doing well because I had to? That maybe Heather isn't doing well because she's never had to? Painful silence. Even Heather looked shaken. The truth is, I continued, voice quieter now, Heather's been failing classes, hasn't she? That's why you bought the car, another bribe instead of addressing actual issues. Their shocked faces confirmed my suspicion. How did you know? Dad asked. I didn't until now, but it fits the pattern. Heather struggles, you throw money at the problem instead of making her face consequences. That's enough, Dad said firmly. Amber, you're upset about your car. But this attitude is completely unacceptable after everything we've done for you. Everything you've done for me, I repeated incredulously. Dad, I put myself through college, found my own apartment, bought my own car, built my own career. What exactly have you done for me lately? The hurt on his face made me regret my words immediately, but there was no taking them back. I'm calling a rideshare, I said, grabbing my phone. Don't be ridiculous, Mom protested. You can't leave like this, it's Christmas. Watch me. As I waited for ride confirmation, my hand brushed the red envelope in my pocket, the lottery ticket. In my anger, I pulled it out and tore it open. What's that? Heather asked. It was supposed to be Mom and Dad's Christmas gift, I explained, holding up the holiday scratcher. A tradition. Almost defiantly, I began scratching with my thumbnail. Symbols revealed themselves one by one, 3 matching snowflakes, 3 matching bells, another row. I kept scratching, barely registering what I was seeing until all squares were revealed. Oh my God, I whispered, staring at the ticket. What is it? Mom asked, stepping closer. I looked up at my family standing in the snow-covered driveway. Strange calm washed over me. I won, I said simply, $50,000. My rideshare driver Marlene sensed I wasn't chatty. She made pleasant comments about Christmas weather, then left me to my thoughts as we drove through snow-dusted suburbs toward my apartment. The lottery ticket felt impossibly light for something worth $50,000. I'd stuffed it in my wallet after showing my stunned family, ignoring their immediate change in demeanor. Dad had suddenly offered to jumpstart my car. Mom insisted I stay for dinner. Even Heather became solicitous, offering to help research claiming procedures. I'd refused them all, climbed into Marlene's Toyota with a curt goodbye. Only now, traveling farther from my childhood home, did I process what happened. $50,000, not millions, but enough to change my immediate circumstances significantly. Enough to matter. Everything okay back there? Marlene asked, meeting my eyes in the rearview mirror. You look like you've seen a ghost. I just won some money, I said, surprising myself. Lottery ticket? No kidding, Christmas miracle, huh? Something like that. I was going to give the ticket to my parents, but then things happened. Sounds like those things happen for a reason, Marlene said wisely. Universe works in mysterious ways. Inside my apartment, silence was welcome relief. I made hot chocolate and sat at my kitchen table with a notebook planning. According to ticket instructions, I'd claim winnings at state lottery headquarters. After taxes, around $35,000. I divided it mentally: $10,000 for reliable used car, $15,000 to pay down student loans, $5,000 emergency fund, $5,000 quality of life improvements. My phone buzzed constantly. 17 missed calls, 29 texts. Mom, please call us, we're worried. Dad, let's talk like adults. Heather, OMG, can't believe you won. Call me. Mom, we can help you invest that money wisely. Dad, be careful with that cash. People will try to take advantage. Heather, are you mad at me? It's not my fault they got me a car. I set the phone down without responding. They could wait. This time my needs came first. Instead, I called my friend Jasmine. Holy shit, was her eloquent response after I told her everything. That's karma on steroids. I know, right? Almost too perfect. So what are you going to do besides tell your family to pound sand, which they totally deserve? I've got a plan, practical stuff mostly, car, loans, savings. Totally sensible and completely on brand, but what about the family situation? I don't know yet. Part of me wants to cut them off completely. Another part knows they're still family, flawed as they are. Family doesn't have to mean putting up with toxic dynamics, Jasmine pointed out. Sometimes distance is healthiest. I know, I'm definitely establishing boundaries, just need to figure out what those look like. 3 days later, I visited a used car dealership Jasmine's brother recommended. The saleswoman, Linda, was refreshingly straightforward. This one just came in, she said, showing me a 3-year-old Honda Accord. Low mileage, one owner, all maintenance records, boring but bulletproof. I test drove it, appreciating the smooth handling and quiet engine, such contrast to my struggling Civic. $17,000 was higher than my budget, but Linda worked financing options to pay it off quickly once lottery winnings cleared. Sounds like you came into some money, Linda observed. Something like that, I said with a small smile. Driving home in my new Accord, I felt pride that had nothing to do with the car itself and everything to do with making sound decisions for my future. At home, my phone showed a new text from Heather. So are you getting a Ferrari with your lottery money, LOL? But seriously, what are you buying? Also, Mom and Dad are being weird and talking about you in hushed voices. Call me. I placed the phone face down without responding. The constant notifications had evolved from concern to curiosity to barely disguised interest in my windfall. Not once had anyone acknowledged the legitimacy of my feelings or the disparities I'd pointed out. A week later, arranging furniture delivery to replace my sagging couch, my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, my parents standing awkwardly in my building's hallway. I considered pretending I wasn't home, but they'd probably seen my new car in the parking spot. Taking a deep breath, I opened the door. Mom, Dad, this is unexpected. They looked uncomfortable, Mom clutching her purse with white knuckles, Dad with hands thrust deep in coat pockets. Can we come in? Mom asked. It's cold in the hallway. I stepped aside. Their eyes immediately cataloged changes: new charcoal sofa, solid wood dining table, area rug that tied the space together. You've been shopping, Dad observed, tone carefully neutral. I have, I confirmed. Coffee just made fresh. They nodded gratefully. I busied myself in the kitchen, using the moment to compose myself. Your place looks nice, Mom commented. Very adult. It's always been adult, Mom. You've just never really looked before. She flinched but didn't argue. We've been worried, Dad said, settling into my new dining chair. You haven't answered calls or texts. I told you I needed space and that I'd be in touch when ready. A week is long to go without speaking to family, Mom interjected, especially after Christmas ended the way it did. You mean after I discovered my parents have consistently favored my sister for years? Yes, I needed time to process that. Dad's jaw tightened. We came to talk rationally, not rehash old arguments. Old arguments, Dad, this happened a week ago, and it's not isolated, it's a pattern defining our family dynamic for as long as I can remember. A car horn honked outside. Mom moved to the window. Is that a new car? She asked, voice rising with surprise. In your parking spot, used Honda Accord, very practical, excellent safety ratings, good fuel economy. You bought a car? Dad seemed genuinely shocked. Without consulting us, the absurdity almost made me laugh. Dad, I'm 28, I don't need to consult you on purchases. But with the lottery money, he began, then realized what he was revealing. Ah, I said softly, now we get to it. You didn't come because you were worried about me, you came because you were worried about what I might do with the money. Mom turned from the window, expression hurt. That's not fair, Amber, we've been genuinely concerned. Really? Because none of your texts acknowledged how I might be feeling about Christmas treatment? It was all call us and be careful with that money. Heavy silence. They exchanged glances, wordless communication speaking volumes. We may not have handled things perfectly, Dad conceded, but family helps family, that's always been our philosophy. Has it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks more like family helps Heather. Your sister needs more support, Mom insisted. She's always struggled more. She struggles because you've never let her face consequences. She fails a class, you hire tutors. Can't hold a job, you pay bills. Wants a car, you buy a Lexus. When have you ever made her stand on her own feet? Dad's face grew increasingly red. That's not fair, Heather has challenges. So do I exclaimed, composure finally cracking. Everyone has challenges, Dad. The difference is I've had to overcome mine alone while watching Heather get everything handed to her. We never meant to make you feel less important, Mom said, tears welling. We just thought you were doing so well you didn't need help. Did you ever consider maybe I was doing well because I had no choice? That being ignored taught me self-sufficiency out of necessity, not preference. Neither seemed to have an answer. Look, Dad said, trying a different approach, what's done is done, we can't change the past. But family is family and we should support each other. With this lottery win, you have an opportunity to be generous. I stared at him, incredulous. Generous? You think I should share the money with you and Heather? Not in those exact words, he backtracked, but family helping family works both ways, and your sister's car insurance is quite expensive. Plus her tuition next semester. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After everything, they were here asking for money. Let me get this straight, you buy Heather a luxury SUV but can't afford insurance, promise to pay tuition but look for someone else to cover it, and that someone should be me, the one you've consistently treated as an afterthought because family helps family. Mom at least looked embarrassed. When you put it like that, it sounds terrible, because it is terrible. It's exactly the pattern I was talking about. Heather gets whatever she wants, consequences be damned, and everyone else picks up the pieces. Dad started to argue, but I held up a hand. I've thought a lot about our family this week, about my place in it, about dynamics that have shaped us, and I've come to some decisions. I took a deep breath, centering myself for words that would change our relationship forever. I'm not giving you or Heather any money, not for insurance, tuition, anything. The lottery winnings are mine, and I'm using them responsibly to pay debt, secure transportation, and create a safety net. But Dad began, I'm not finished. Going forward, I'm establishing clear boundaries. I love you both and want a relationship, but it has to be healthy, based on mutual respect. That means acknowledging the favoritism and working to change it. It means treating me as an equal family member, not just the independent one who needs less attention. My phone buzzed on the counter, text from Heather. Did Mom and Dad find you? They're supposed to ask about helping with my insurance. The Lexus costs way more than Dad thought, lol. I turned the screen toward my parents so they could read it. Mom closed her eyes briefly. Dad's face flushed deeper. She doesn't know we're here, he claimed weakly. Stop lying, I said, suddenly exhausted. Just stop. You came hoping I'd share winnings, specifically to cover costs related to Heather's car. At least have the decency to be honest. Deafening silence followed. They looked at each other, then me, clearly at a loss. Finally, Mom spoke. We should go. This isn't going how we hoped. No, I imagine not. As they gathered coats, Dad made one last attempt. Think about what you're doing, Amber, turning your back on family over money. I'm not turning my back on anyone. I'm refusing to participate in dysfunctional patterns that have defined our family too long. When you're ready to acknowledge issues and work on them, I'll be here. Until then, I need to prioritize my own well-being. They left without further argument. The door closed with a soft click that felt more final than a slam would have. Less than 5 minutes later, my phone rang. Heather, what did you say to Mom and Dad? She demanded. They called, sounding weird, saying something about me needing to develop independence. Are you not helping with insurance? That's so selfish, Amber, after everything they've done for us. Goodbye, Heather, I said calmly and ended the call. For the first time in years, perhaps ever, I felt truly in control of my family relationship. It wasn't about the money, it never had been. It was about respect, equality, and healthy boundaries. Things that should have been present all along, but now I had courage to demand them. Summer sunshine replaced winter's chill. My apartment windows stood open, gentle breeze stirring curtains I'd added during modest renovation. The lottery money had been spent exactly as planned. Reliable car, reduced student loan burden, emergency fund established, small quality of life improvements. But the most significant changes weren't financial, they were internal and relational. After the confrontation, I'd maintained limited contact, brief, cordial texts and occasional calls, but no visits. I declined Easter dinner, Mother's Day brunch, family Cape Cod vacation. Each refusal met first with guilt trips, then anger, finally reluctant acceptance. Heather had been furious initially, bombarding me with accusatory texts and tearful calls. When manipulation failed, she'd switch tactics, alternating between ignoring me and making awkward reconciliation attempts. My firm boundaries forced my family to reckon with patterns they'd long taken for granted. Not easy for any of us, but necessary. At work, renewed focus paid dividends. Free from emotional family drama drain, I'd thrown myself into creative projects, impressing clients and earning a promotion 3 months ahead of schedule. The raise wasn't enormous, but represented recognition of talent and hard work, validation I'd long sought from parents but now found professionally. My social circle expanded. Jasmine remained closest confidant, but I joined hiking group and book club, forming connections with people who knew me only as I was now, not as perpetually overlooked older sister. I'd even started dating someone, Ryan, a software engineer from hiking group. Our relationship was still new but refreshingly balanced. He respected my independence while offering genuine support when needed, so different from conditional love I'd grown up with. In early June, a letter arrived from my parents. Actual paper letter in envelope with stamp, so unexpected I'd nearly mistaken it for junk mail. Inside was a card with simple message in Mom's handwriting: "Dear Amber, your father and I have been doing a lot of thinking these past months. The distance between us has been painful but perhaps necessary. It's forced us to examine patterns we didn't even realize were there. We were wrong to treat you and Heather so differently all these years. What we saw as acknowledging your independence was, as you said, taking you for granted while enabling your sister's dependence. The different standards we set, the different expectations we held, they weren't fair to either of you. We can't change the past, but we can acknowledge it and try to do better going forward. If you're willing, we'd like to start rebuilding our relationship on healthier terms. With love, Mom and Dad." I'd read it several times, emotions swirling. No mention of lottery money, no subtle hints about financial help for Heather, just acknowledgement and beginning of amends. It wasn't magical fix, one letter couldn't erase years of disparity, but it was a start, a step I hadn't been sure they'd ever take. My response was measured, brief note expressing appreciation for their reflection and openness to gradually rebuilding our relationship. I suggested coffee rather than diving into family dinner, establishing neutral territory for our first face-to-face in months. Heather's evolution was less straightforward. Without parents' constant cushioning, she'd faced hard realities. The Lexus expense became overwhelming. She'd ultimately traded it for something practical. She'd failed another course but took responsibility rather than making excuses, signing up to repeat at summer session. Last week, she texted asking for budget advice, not money, just guidance. First time in our adult lives, she'd approached me as an equal rather than competitor or potential resource. I'd sent links to financial planning tools I'd used when starting out, along with an offer to review her draft. Small steps but meaningful ones. As I sat on my comfortable secondhand couch reflecting on these changes, my phone chimed with calendar reminder: "Coffee with Mom and Dad, 1 p.m. tomorrow." The anxiety I'd expected didn't materialize. Instead, I looked forward to seeing them, curious about the new dynamic we might create. The power balance had shifted, not in my favor necessarily, but toward equilibrium. I was no longer overlooked daughter desperate for recognition. I was confident woman willing to engage, but only on terms of mutual respect. The Christmas that seemed so devastating had ultimately been transformative. Not because of the lottery win, though that helped practically, but because it pushed me to recognize my own worth and demand others recognize it too. The lesson wasn't that money solves problems or cutting off difficult family is the answer. It was that healthy relationships require boundaries, honesty, and balance. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is disrupt harmful patterns rather than perpetuating them. The greatest gift I'd received wasn't lottery winnings. It was realization that I had power to change my story, to stop accepting the role I'd been cast in and write a new part for myself, to recognize that while I couldn't control how others treated me, I could control how I responded to that treatment. Some relationships can't be saved, and that's okay. Some patterns are too toxic to mend. But others can be reshaped with time, effort, and willingness to change. My family fell into the latter category: imperfect, sometimes frustrating, but worth the work of reconstruction. The journey wasn't over. We'd make mistakes, fall back into old habits, need to reset and try again. But for the first time in my adult life, I felt like equal participant in my family rather than afterthought. Not because of financial windfall or dramatic confrontation, but because I'd finally recognized my own value and refused to accept anything less than the respect that value deserved. The Christmas card my parents sent in February sat on my bookshelf, not the generic holiday one, but simple greeting card with handwritten notes saying they were thinking of me. It represented first tentative step toward healing. And sometimes that's all you need. Not a lottery win or grand gesture, just someone finally seeing your worth and the courage to demand they treat you accordingly.